does. Have you been watching a lot of cable news still
I have been.
over the last?
Yes,
I have too. So
I'm not a huge watch the news guy all
I'm
the
not
time.
even sit and watch it.
But this week, I can't pull myself away from it. I'll do you one better, Hunt. I even watched The View for a second straight day today.
Oh, wow.
Stephen A. Smith was on it, and I thought Stephen A. Smith was terrific.
How did Sonny Hostin defend the whites today?
I don't think she, much like Whoopi Goldberg won't mention Donald Trump's name anymore. She won't refer to him by name. I don't think Sonny Hostin even mentions white people.
What does she
anymore.
call him?
What she just says that guy.
President?
That guy. No, just the guy that was elected is what she says.
That
I'm
guy.
not even going to honor his name.
Wow.
She
Whoopi.
said, yeah. And she's, by the way, she's one of the more level-headed members of the panel. Is the one who won't say the president-elect's name.
Oh, my gosh.
On that show.
Yeah, she's the one that'll get up and walk off the panel.
Yeah, I thought
pretty
Stephen
level-headed.
A. Smith was really good.
Yeah.
As a guest today, I mean, he's self-professed. He's like, I don't affiliate with either party. I don't like either one of them right now. I'm right down the middle on this. But he talked about where the Democrats got it wrong and why people gravitate towards Trump and why people didn't gravitate towards Kamala Harris. And he kind of got into, which we're going to also, this shame game that he thought it was a misplay for Beyonce and Oprah and Taylor Swift and all of these celebrities, Barack Obama even, he said, to almost belittle and shame people into voting for Kamala Harris, that this is your duty, right? It's like you should feel bad enough to go vote for Kamala Harris. And then it backfires because so many average, normal Americans, they don't identify with people that are super famous, super wealthy, telling them how they should vote at times. It's just not something that resonates.
Being told, they identify with those who, but they still like those who will vote alongside them on who they like, but they're not being told how to vote. We're being told how someone else is going to vote, like Nick Bosa.
Yeah.
Right? Like he's not telling anyone how to vote, but he's telling everyone how he's going to.
I've still yet to
hear. There's a difference there.
I've still yet to hear a compelling argument on with people that, Nick Bosa is a good example. I think Nick Bosa loves Donald Trump and could give you a bunch of reasons as to why he thinks Donald Trump is going to be a good president again and what he's going to do when he gets in office. All I heard from the other side the whole time was how evil Trump was.
Wait, they're voting against Trump instead of
they're not voting for Kamala Harris.
What happened in 2020.
I didn't hear any rational argument about here's what a Harris administration will do. Here's where they're going to get to work immediately. Here's how they're going to help the country. It was just, please vote for this person because this person's terrible and mean.
Right, and that's what they're being told or what they believe.
That basically sums up the campaign.
And I mentioned that. Did you watch the cable news? I was watching. Where was I? I was flipping through. It was CNN. I think it was Axelrod, who said they were debating what Elon Musk is going to end up doing, what he wants in return. And he said, well, he's done some good things, but he's turned Twitter into a garbage disposal, he said it into a latrine. And I was like, what? Into a sewer. And I was thinking, have you seen all the social media? The sewer right now is coming from those that are saying that everyone who made this happen, our country is racist, and we're all condemned to burn in hell now because of it. I mean, that's basically what, if you go on Facebook, if you have, a group of friends that are voting you certainly know that it is, sad bastard season right now.
Yeah, I don't.
With all the posts.
But if you are opposed to that kind of stuff,
but it's like
it was that way before Elon Musk took over. I mean, we've been talking about
Elon Musk
Twitter
voted
now for 15 years, Hutton.
Elon Musk voted for Hillary.
I think I've been on Twitter for 15 years, and we've been talking about Twitter trolling and people being mean to each other on Twitter for those entire 15 years, not just when Elon Musk took over. What people are mad about is that those who were getting silenced that they disagree with aren't getting silenced anymore. So now they're seeing the mean stuff about them as well, and they're mad about that. Now it's a latrine because of that.
Yes.
Because there's not as much censoring going on.
But it's also, it's still the sewer because because it's not censored, we still have those that were all on, Kamala's side here that did not win. It was a landslide victory, not just, by the way, for the presidency, but across Congress. And you have those that are like saying that not my president, things like that, right? Coming across. Yeah. That's also a part of the sewer, right? And it's also, it's being fed by the networks that were not pro-Trump or pro anything other than feeding into the groupthink.
I thought President Biden was really good today in his speech about his talk with President-elect Donald Trump and how people need to respond to this. And if you're upset about it, you can't just love America when your side wins. Was basically the message. You got to love America at all times. And if you're upset with this outcome, well, then wake up, get back to work, and see how you can find your way back to leadership or to helping out causes that mean a lot to you. I thought it was very well said by him.
And well handled by the transition of power and everything that's been said there, too. There's no
doubt.
It's been smooth thus far.
No doubt. Now, here's where it's not being handled quite as well. And we're going to give you a few examples of this right now from the sports world. Let's start with Angel Reese. Here's what Angel Reese had to say. Do we have the tweet, guys? Yeah, there it is. I'm so disappointed in America. Some of you just couldn't selfishly put your pride aside, huh? I think what you meant to say was some of you just couldn't unselfishly put your pride aside, not selfishly, because she's claiming they're selfish by not putting their pride aside, asking if they could unselfishly put their pride aside. So she screwed that up just a little bit. Putting the pride aside, there's a possibility. Here's my lesson, my message to Angel Reese. Would you please allow, just for a second, allow the possibility that there might be a human in America who legitimately believes Donald Trump is a better leader and a better option for president than Kamala Harris. This is not a selfish pride situation with everyone. This is not just I like Donald Trump 8 years ago and I'm going to stick by it even though I've seen some things I don't like. No, I think there are actual people who very reasonably looked at the candidates, listened to what they had to say, saw the track record and thought, I'd rather have this person over this person. It's not just pride that did that. This is not the only reason that Donald Trump was elected. So there's one response from Angel Reese.
I would ask Angel Reese, I guess she now looks at Caitlin Clark in a different light because she put her pride aside by liking a post from Taylor Swift endorsing Kamala Harris, right?
Yeah, I guess.
They do have to.
I guess.
Just using that post, you can't blame Caitlin Clark for this now, Angel, because she liked a post where Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala Harris.
Just couldn't put your pride aside and do the.
Some people just couldn't do it.
Let's also, into the broader sense of this, we're going to get into some other reactions from some sports celebrities about Donald Trump being president-elect. One thing is this. I've heard this on multiple newscasts. I've been watching a lot of news here lately. Boy, this is still a very divided country. This country's never been more divided. That's not true.
No, it's not.
Based on the electorate, that's simply not true. In fact, if I'm looking at this correctly, the country's never been more united than it was in 1988 coming out of the Reagan years when George H.W. Bush had a commanding win for president. And then division started after that. And I'm not saying that everyone's behind Donald Trump or anything like that, but it's not as divided as it was 4 years ago when the race was much closer and the election was much closer that year. So based on vote, is it as divided as it's ever been? I don't think it is. I think that we are convinced division is more than it is because people believe all of social media is real. And in fact, social media is not real life. Example A is Keith Olbermann, because everything this guy posts is not reality. It's one of the more ludicrous things you will have ever read. Here's his latest from Keith Olbermann. Do we have a Justice Department statement on the in real-time Russia-Trump election interference bomb threats, or is Merrick Garland in another coma? POTUS, anybody going to? Now, Hutton, I want to give the Democrats credit here because they reacted a lot better than the losing side in 2020. To the news that they were losing. So full marks for that. Then I see Keith Olbermann talking about a Russia interference and bomb threats. And by the way, did not know bomb threats were happening in Atlanta. One network was talking about it that I saw live the other night, and that was MSNBC. I kept going back and forth to hear about these.
Well, some of them
did not hear about it anywhere else.
There was one that was, where police there were social media posts that were fake. And things like that looked like there was a bomb threat that wasn't actually happening.
Even they were saying there's no merit to it.
Right.
There's no merit to it, but they did have to clear out an area and look into it. Somewhere
you're right in that.
Somewhere in Fulton County or DeKalb County in Atlanta, this was taking place, right? So, whatever.
I know, yeah.
I want to give credit, and then Keith Olbermann posts this, and I'm thinking this is just ridiculous.
this is par for the course right here with him.
Yeah, no doubt.
Look at real-time Russian Trump election interference bomb threats in a state. Well, look at all the other states, though. I guess were there bomb threats where I guess the Republican voters would also not want to show up and vote.
Well, was
it just only Republicans were allowed in to vote because of the bomb threat, Chad?
Donald Trump won every battleground state.
I know.
I mean, look, if this thing was just, this was like 2000 all over again, and it came down to a recount in Florida or North Carolina or Arizona or Michigan, or pick your battleground state, that would be one thing. Donald Trump kicked Kamala Harris's ass in every battleground state. That's something. I mean, you can sit and bury your head in the sand and act like, oh boy, we've never been more divided. No, people wanted change from this last administration. The people have spoken. Now, what I would advise everyone to do, I would say the same thing, by the way, if Kamala Harris had won. Lick your wounds, get your ass off the ground, put one foot in front of the other, go back to work, go back to being a member of your family or whatever it is you do every day, and pray that the president does a good job. That's what every time, when I watched President Biden stumble his way through speeches and not remember where he was at times, I prayed for the president and I prayed, please be okay. This is sad to watch.
Yes.
I want you to do a good job. Yep. You're the president now. I want you to do a good job.
He was our president.
I wish every Democrat and everyone who voted for Kamala Harris could say the same about Donald Trump. We're not getting a lot of that. We're getting a lot of extremism and threats of exactly the same thing that people would criticize Donald Trump for. He's a fearmonger. He's this, he's that. He's getting everyone scared into believing things that aren't true. Well, then you have Jemele Hill, who comes out and says this about the election. She first off stated, I, for one, will not be watching a single drop of election coverage. There's a new episode of The Lioness out. Season 2, by the way, terrific. I do side with Jemele on that. Great show. I kind of had a feeling how this election would go about a year ago. I just didn't involve the same candidates. Y'all be well, though. And then someone responds, said, here's the bet hedging. Nicely done. And she says, unlike some of y'all, this isn't a game to me. Real consequences will occur. What real consequences? I don't see real consequences for Jemele Hill in this life. As Charles Barkley aptly pointed out, Jemele Hill gets fired everywhere she goes and still gets good jobs after that. What are her consequences? What exactly is everyone talking about rights being taken away and all these things that are going to happen, and people talking about how they have less civil rights than their grandmother did? And Hutton, I don't understand where this is all coming from.
Well, she's going to, she's admitted, she's trying to really make us believe she didn't watch the election coverage. Where does she get all of her vitriol?
Well, she was probably at Howard with the Kamala Harris campaign.
Waiting for hours?
Yeah, just waiting outside.
I'm surprised they didn't send her out.
She probably wasn't allowed in the room that Kamala Harris was in, but she was outside just not watching.
They should have just sent Jemele Hill out there to let the crowd know that she wasn't going to speak.
She was listening to the students responding to the bad news in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And then eventually she left when the school president or whoever it was came out and told everyone to leave. That's probably what happened.
Chad, half the country you knew this going into the election. Half the country would be, maybe not half, utter disbelief at the election results. But we have to, no matter what, we have to learn to coexist with someone who may have voted for the other candidate, or may have voted based on an issue that was extremely important to one person, but really didn't matter in the thinking of another. And that's just how life is. That's how America is. You have to learn to coexist and communicate. And far too often we have, Jemele Hill. You did well pointing out, Angel Reese, Olbermann. It's all going to be the same. She says it's not a game. It's a game to get eyeballs and viewers on whatever her opinion might be for the day. Like that's the game, is to continue her self-importance, or the way she views her opinion versus others, in a world where we're consuming a far different message than the one they're spewing right now.
I mean, Jimmy Kimmel cried last night in his monologue.
Well,
he opened by saying, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Last night was a terrible night for America. and one of the reasons he thinks that it's a terrible night for America.
I know people that would have felt the same way if Kamala won.
For sure, yeah, and likely would have cried about it too. I need people to cite specific examples of all of these human rights being taken away by Donald Trump. That's going to happen. Like what from 2016 to 2020, all the people that are posting all these same things, what was taken from you in that time? Give me examples of what a Trump administration did to you. That's where I think that we've gone overblown with dire consequences, right, on either side. And this is where we lead to. I'm seeing people on social media post about how they're not going to be friends with people that they know voted for Donald Trump anymore, because you can't just say you love me while voting for someone who's going to take all my rights away. To which I respond with, what rights? Like specifically, if we're going back to this Georgia voting bill, is it the right to go vote without an ID? Like what rights are we talking about that we're up in arms with here? The right for men to participate with women in sports? That's going to go away? That, oh, by the way, the left is now even admitting, yeah, we maybe should have taken a different stance on that and just admitted what everyone knows, what OutKick has known since the beginning. Men should not be competing against women in sports. It's common sense. It's basic knowledge. It's okay to admit it. So what rights are we talking about here?
I think it varies person to person. Kimmel was a part of the group that was being called fake news, and the rhetoric goes both sides here, so that was we know the vibe and the tenor of the country from the 2020 campaigns, right? So that's, I think, you could point to rights being taken away. LeBron, we mentioned this yesterday. LeBron's life didn't change based on, nor it won't.
Nor will it in January when the inauguration happens.
No.
And it's not going to change a year after that, 2 years after that, or 4 years after that when another president is elected.
Yeah.
None of it's going to change the fact that LeBron has an awesome life.
Well, and I think that
and that his daughter's going to have an awesome life, and every opportunity, and a lot more opportunities than most everyone else in America. Why? Because she's LeBron James' kid. Much like Bronny James has been given more opportunity than pretty much every other kid in America. I'm tired of the self-victimization of it. Like, if you just go ahead and declare yourself the victim before you're actually victimized in any way, how is that productive? There's none of this is all that productive. I think a lot of the gloating from the right on this isn't all that productive either, quite frankly. But especially when your side loses, waking up and, oh my gosh, my rights have disappeared already. What am I going to do? Just give it a little bit of time. Let's see what happens here. And ask yourself what happened from 2016 to 2020 that drastically changed your life or were your rights taken away. Now, I'm willing to hear someone out if they tell me where that's happened, but it's just not happening.
Well, far too often the communication, we don't have a conversation. We have an argument based on who you voted for.
Right.
You have to declare your side, and if it's different than my side, then it takes a different, totally different attitude with where we're going to be with the conversation. It cranks it up a notch. And that's got to change too. And a lot of it is just how you perceive the person on social media, through the profile more than the person. That too is, you see, if you see pronouns in someone's bio, first impression is way different if you're against having to post anything regarding that whatsoever, right? And we'll get into more of this later in the show. But this, Chad, is the one thing that's not going to change is everyone deciding which side they're on based on social media algorithms.
Yeah.
A lot of people probably, you watch a lot of the pop culture. I didn't see Jimmy Kimmel's speech or his monologue.
I saw it posted. I didn't watch the show live.
Right, but you saw a clip?
Yeah.
Yep, your algorithm, you have that. I didn't see that scrolling. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, my algorithm was someone making fun of Jimmy Kimmel for crying on there. It wasn't someone saying, oh, my gosh, he said everything that I'm thinking. But it was the exact opposite. But, yes, I saw it that way.
Yeah, and I think that there's something to be said for that, too, on what you're fed on a daily basis, right? If you're just flipping channels right now, something Chad and I don't do every night is watch a lot of cable news. We're watching it now because it is entertaining.
Right.
But I realize what we're seeing.
Yeah, look, I'll get a little personal here, but whatever. My mom doesn't like Donald Trump. Voted for Kamala Harris. One of the few people in the state of Tennessee that did so, based on the numbers, but has never liked Donald Trump, thinks he's arrogant, does not personally like him, does not like how he talks to people, thinks he's a bully, all these things. She's not changing for that position. Now, she also is not some huge Kamala Harris fan. She's not going to give you a lot of positives, but she's staunch on that position. My dad voted for Donald Trump and voted for Donald Trump before that. And if Donald Trump ran for an illegal third term, he'd probably vote for Donald Trump. Now, they're both getting news in places that at times you probably shouldn't get news from. My dad, 3 times in the last week, has brought to me a story to ask me about that's completely made up and false that he's been fed on Facebook. And I said, Dad, you cannot read stories or news on Facebook. I get this stuff sometimes where I get like fake movie news on Facebook. It's totally made up.
Fake trailers.
There's a fake movie poster. There's all this stuff. And I'm like, this doesn't seem right.
What movie?
So what I did, instead of clicking on the link, I go to Google.
Yes.
And I click and I see, are there reputable places talking about this? If there's not, it's not a real story. But my dad's response to it is he goes to Facebook and nowhere else, and he watches reruns of Andy Griffith, and that's it. So he's going to read that and then ask me if it's true or not. I'm like, no. He'll start asking the question. I'll come out and say, no, stop going to Facebook for news. But that, too, is a problem.
Well, you mentioned Google.
And it's not my dad's fault that he thinks that, well, it's on my computer screen, so
Right.
it must be news. This is here on Facebook. And just the lack of understanding sometimes about what's real and what's
How
not
it's presented
is also a big problem.
See, and you. And by the way, I love Debbie Withrow.
Yes, yeah.
No matter who she votes for.
Right.
So here's the thing. There was one. You mentioned she wasn't all pro Kamala Harris, right?
No.
I think, and it's not. I'm not using her as the example. It just sparked this. I think there are a lot of people that voted against a candidate, and one person that felt opposite of that voted for a candidate.
I think the last time
someone even voted for Donald Trump, or you voted against Donald Trump. You didn't vote for Kamala Harris. That's the difference to me in the approach to the election.
I'll take it a step further, Hutton. I think the last time that someone won the presidency because a ton of people voted for that person and not backlash against someone else, probably this election with Trump, based on the numbers, but Barack Obama. I think millions of people voted for Barack Obama. They didn't vote against John McCain. You know, they didn't vote against Mitt Romney. They voted for Barack Obama. 2016, millions of people voted against Hillary Clinton. They didn't like her. They didn't like Trump either, but they liked Trump better than her. So he wins the election. After 4 years of Trump, guess what happened? More people voted against Trump,
Yes.
not for Biden. People
right.
weren't claiming Biden's going to be this great world leader or a great president. They voted against Trump.
And
in 2024,
they looked in the mirror and figured out how to run
I think we're
campaign.
starting to get a balance back of just not constant hate, where hate is leading your vote. I hate this person, so I'm voting for this one. And we're getting back to a little bit more push and pull. Because I think in this election, by the numbers, because it was such a landslide, you got some of both. I think you had people who voted against Kamala Harris, absolutely. And I think you had a number of people that, unlike 2020, actually voted for Donald Trump. And that's a bit of a difference.
You have that, plus, Chad, you have...
And I like it that way, by the way.
I mean,
Give me the reason for the candidate as to why they're going to be really good.
And you
I
hear-
like those arguments.
You hear... I've got a family member who voted for Trump, but really didn't want to, but certainly weren't going to vote for the party that couldn't get their act together when it came to the first debate, to how this thing ended up, and you really didn't know the candidate to even end with when it came on election day. You know, like
Yeah.
you go to 60 Minutes and stumbling over certain interviews and answers on The View. You know, you just got, what are they doing? You know, they didn't have a reason to vote for Kamala Harris.
We were sent some stuff before the show.
And if you, by the way, it was also being said it's your duty to do this.
yeah,
Going back to your tweets that you pointed
people
out.
don't like being shamed or kind of intimidated into, you must do this.
And who was Angel Reese
Because
to say that?
we are saying this.
Who was Angel Reese to say that?
Who is anybody?
Well, I know
mean-
that, but I mean, like, why listen to someone that is, playing sports that is very self-important. You know, I mentioned being unselfish. I know she wrote selfish, and putting your pride aside.
Well, she's also 23 years old.
But still,
I'm just not.
That's the mindset.
This is not ageist. I'm just not going to listen to any 23-year-old professional athlete tell me, how dare you not vote for the candidate that I prefer?
Right.
And you couldn't put your pride aside. I'm not going to listen to you.
Right, but we could.
And I'm not sorry about that.
It's still a headline when Bosa wears the MAGA hat. He's the same age.
Yeah,
but I'm saying it's a different. There's not a tweet saying you must do this.
And I'm not. But if I were a Kamala supporter or on the Democratic side, I would have the same response to Bosa wearing the MAGA hat in the interview, saying, "I'm not listening to this young pro athlete tell me who to vote for. Why should I care what Nick Bosa thinks about who should win president?"
But they're being told that they should care based on columnists saying that the NFL, is two-faced when it comes to who they're going to punish and who they won't. Right? They're being fed the same garbage. Going back to the cesspool and the sewer of social media.
They
from
had
David
all these,
Axelrod.
John King on CNN had all these different graphics about Latino vote in this county and the black vote in this county and suburban whites over here and the percentage of men and women and what the vote breaks down to. All this in-depth stuff on each group with each county. I so badly wanted to see a graphic that had the breakdown of Swifties and who they voted for, because Taylor Swift was very clear that everyone that's a fan of hers should go and vote for Kamala Harris.
18 to 25 or something went heavy Kamala Harris.
Yeah, I'd like to see, though, just specific.
Oh.
If you were a registered Swiftie and a registered independent as a voter, what was the breakdown? And was it worse than 2020? Because everything else was worse. Was that the one demographic that actually was better for Kamala? Was the Swiftie fan base? Or was it worse like every other? She underperformed every single spot compared to Joe Biden from the previous election. Did she also underperform with Swifties?
Could she even...
This is the journalism OutKick should be doing right now.
Could she even relate to Taylor Swift in any way?
Who can?
Lean into it.
That's what I laugh when all the star power.
Who can?
All the star power on the Democratic side, and when they're talking about this is what's going to happen.
But they have Taylor Swift endorsing her.
I know,
and even she can't take that. I didn't, and I told you this yesterday. Not one time did I think they used the assassination attempt into what actually ended up being the actual election night. I never heard Taylor Swift's name either. And trust me, the algorithms say use it all the time.
Yeah,
crazy.
There's a lot of fake morality too. That's thrown in the face of people. That how dare you vote for this person who said this or has done this, or how dare you vote for someone who treats the little guy this way, and I'm just thinking, for everything you're saying, I've seen on the other side people saying, what's wrong with me voting on what the Bible says? This person is more, they're not totally, but they're more biblically in line than the other person. And I'm thinking, all of that is just vote for who you think's the best president.
I know.
And
have a conversation.
I stand on this, and now you're not moral, and I am more morally upright because I voted for Kamala Harris, and I'm just thinking, can someone explain to me why this person is going to be a better president than that person, and that this is why I voted for them? I am in lockstep 1,000% with anyone who can do that. If someone can explain to me why they voted for Kamala Harris because this is why she's going to be a better leader, I'm willing to hear that out, and I'm never going to be mad at that person. But when you start playing this moral high ground with people,
can't do that.
You're always going to lose.
It goes back to they can't tell you how she's going to be the best option. It's just they're voting against the other option.
Yeah, it's
right?
not an effective tool to persuade people.
No.
It's never going to work. And I saw a lot of that with some of the celebrities that were endorsing Kamala Harris. And that's why we wanted to talk a little bit about that.
And one of the celebrities that endorsed Donald Trump is Nick Bosa. And he doesn't regret wearing the hat and actually coming in and he crashed the party. That was the post-game interview after the San Francisco 49ers beat the Cowboys.
Nick, you could be fined for your hat. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't know. I haven't got one yet, but if it comes, it comes. Did you know that going in that could be a possibility?
Yeah, it was well worth it.
Why did you feel compelled to sort of express it?
I don't think my position on speaking about it is going to change. So clearly, the nation spoke, and we got what we got.
Nick, how'd you enjoy last night? Did you watch the coverage? What did you think about last night?
It was fun. It's a good time. Stayed up.
You guys good?
Thank you.
Gonna go to
Everyone stayed up too. That
Yeah.
wasn't a good time for all, but there's a difference in the messaging right there.
That was a very civil back and forth. I'm willing to bet not one of those reporters asking those questions voted for Donald Trump in the Bay Area.
I don't know.
Maybe, but they had a nice back and forth. He didn't flaunt anything other than going, suns out, guns out with the sleeves rolled up.
Hard
he
not
wasn't-
to if you're Nick Bosa.
Right. He's just like, yeah, I don't regret it. It's a big night. Everything's good. Very
Again,
calm.
You can't get fined for speaking his mind there. But
If you're willing
doesn't
to
need to.
take the fine for that, great.
it's $11,000.
We'll continue to be consistent on this. Just adjudicate it the same for everyone espousing every political view on every side, and we're good. Whether that's no fine for everyone or everybody gets fined, then I'm good with that. And I think Bosa is going to be fine with that. It's not like he's going to appeal it.
I do too.
He said he knew when he did it that he could get fined. So he's going to take the fine.
So the committee for the college football playoff, I think one thing is clear, Chad. They love the Big Ten. So you got Penn State and Indiana. They've combined for one win thus far over a team with an FPI, Football Power Index ranking at ESPN in the top 40. They have one win combined. You have Ohio State, who jumps Georgia in the initial rankings. And, of course, Oregon, who we all knew was going to be the consensus number one team in the country. The Big Ten has a non-conference record of just 6-8 against Power 4 teams. They're barely better with that 6-8 record than the ACC right now. Meanwhile, the SEC, they have a lot to do with that record, that poor record for the Big Ten. SEC is a combined 10-6 in that same category. You have the Power 2, the Big Ten and the SEC. They're going to win their way in or lose their way out here, right? A lot's going to change between what we saw this week, going into this weekend, and then the final bracket that will be put together. But the early indication is that the committee loves the resumes of the teams in the North from the Power 4. Much more than like unbeaten BYU, who you will see in the bracket is the 4 seed, but they're number 9 overall, which is telling the Big 12, you're a one-bid league. They're at 9, which means BYU could fall out easily. And it's just be the conference champ that gets in, but you're not going to be viewed as a conference of playing anyone worthy of a record, of getting in as from a conference that's going to be ranked higher, for instance, than much of the Big Ten or the SEC. A couple of other takeaways here. Vanderbilt's unranked. I don't understand that whatsoever.
Me neither.
BYU, they should be upset because, again, you could have Boise as a conference champ. It's the 4 highest ranked conference champs that get the bye. So BYU could make the playoff, but they could, at the end of all this, be ranked below or behind Boise, which will be interesting. And then there's Army, who's 25th. Boise State is 13 spots better right now than Army, and that's their competition currently to actually make it as the highest ranked group of teams that is not in the Power 4/5. And then we saw last year Liberty get a New Year's 6 game, and they were ranked very high without a schedule that mattered whatsoever. They waltzed into that New Year's 6 bowl game. All that being said, you're going to hear a lot about strength of schedule and all. They can make up the rules as they go, and I'm here to say they will make up the rules how they want them to be and how the network wants this to be when the final brackets are released. That's my big takeaway. The Big Ten, I didn't expect them to be as popular as they are, just based on the initial rankings 1 through 12.
So 4 of the top 8 in the rankings, I think, right? Big Ten.
Yep.
SEC led with 8 in the top 25 of the initial college football playoff ranking. You know, I'm mostly okay with all of this, with the top. I still have questions about why Penn State ahead of teams like Indiana in their own conference and Tennessee, even for that matter. Penn State doesn't have a win nearly as good as Tennessee's over Alabama.
No.
You go even like head-to-head with teams with winning records or headed to a bowl game, and Tennessee is better. Indiana's right there when you look at that even with Penn State.
Well, Penn State beat Illinois. That's it.
Yeah.
When they were top 25.
And Illinois is probably going to go 7-5 at the end of the year.
Yep.
Maybe 8-4. I mean, that's a fine win at home, but
they're valuing Ohio State's loss to Oregon, right? And
they're valuing Penn State's loss to Ohio State too, I think, because it was close.
Right. But I'm saying, like, that's why Ohio State jumps Georgia.
If you're going to argue that, let's just go Penn State, Indiana here for argument's sake.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to argue that Penn State's loss to Ohio State is somehow better than anything Indiana's done because of the lack of competition on Indiana's schedule, my counter to that is, okay, I'm buying it if Indiana is just skating by 3 or 4 points in these games. They're housing everyone.
Agreed.
They beat Nebraska 56-7. They are destroying people.
Yep.
By every metric and every eye test, they are an outstanding football team.
47 unanswered points against Michigan State.
I mean, okay, this close loss at home for Penn State to Ohio State, we think is just as impressive as these wins over all these opponents for Indiana. That's fine. If you want to go, it's how they're winning too, because they're going to note how people win or lose.
Yep.
Was it a close loss? Was it on the road? Was it at home? All those factors are going to come in, especially when at the end of the year we're going to be dealing with a lot of 2-loss teams. There's going to be a bundle of them in the Big Ten and the SEC, and 2, 3, 4 of them are going to be out possibly, and you're going to have to sift through who gets in and who gets out.
And the analytics are supposed to. They will be right in front. They'll be right in front of them, but it's not supposed to be It's not a formal bullet point for how they're going to rank teams. Not formal, but it impacts it greatly.